right, guys, welcome to day one of drawing one here. I want you guys to try something out really quick. I like to start off right from the beginning with doing a little bit of drawing. So you're going to see a picture of a bottle up in your upper left-hand corner of the screen. Go ahead and pause the video real fast and do a quick drawing of that bottle with no instruction at all. Just a quick outline drawing of that bottle. Okay, so hopefully you guys did that, paused the video, and did a drawing. Now I'm going to do my version of what I bet, I'm going to say like 90% of people who haven't been in a drawing class ever before and don't draw very much might have done. Now this isn't going to be everybody, but this is from seeing a lot of beginning drawing students. So most of the time what I see is people holding their pencil kind of like it's a, in a writing grip, like you're going to write your name. And if you're drawing something like that bottle, maybe starting at the top, that's where I would start probably. Okay, drawing our cap, working our way down. Now you might do something like this and give yourself a cap, but at a certain point, you kind of got to bite the bullet and work your way around this bottle. Now here's the problem when you start to draw like this. I've gone really dark, I've gone really clear, and now this part of the bottle looks decent, looks okay, looks like a bottle, but oh shoot, this is an oh shoot moment. I have to make this side look roughly like the side I just drew. So if you notice, it's not symmetrical. These shapes don't quite line up with where I made my little grooves right in here. It's not perfect. And when you start something like this, you realize, well, wait a second, I just drew really dark. How the heck am I gonna undo this? So I have a kneaded eraser right here. I can definitely erase, but I drew so hard that I can't erase all the way back to the white of the page. So I'm kind of hosed. And this is where a lot of people get to and they say, well, I can't draw. That's it. This is tough, and kind of walk away from it. What am I supposed to do here? So that kind of brings me to maybe the very first lesson that I want you guys to think about in drawing. So this is a little quote by Ernest Hemingway, who a lot of you guys will know. The first draft of anything is shit. That's writing, that's drawing, that's anything in the arts for sure. Nothing's going to be perfect the first time you try it. And that goes for people who have 1 day of experience or 10 years or 20 years of experience drawing. You never get it right the first time. So I want to kind of show you an alternative, and this is going to be the crux of maybe the first few weeks of class, to be honest, is the difference between what our brains want to do when we're asked to draw something and what's a much more efficient and easy way to work. So the first thing I'm going to show you is, again, I had like that death grip. I call it a writing grip when I drew over here. And what that gives you when you draw like that, it gives you a very clear, clean outline. And so one thing I would call this, if I was describing this, would be outline, drawing. Another word for that would be contour. And you guys can jot these down as ideas for yourself. So contour line drawings are a type of line drawing that's very descriptive on the edges of forms. Very clear kind of outlines. So that would be this style over here. Now what we're going to try to also work on, that's a key form of line drawing that we're going to use a lot. But another type of drawing would be the gesture, and I'm going to write that down in just a second. But when you do a gesture drawing, I tend to hold my pencil much more like this, kind of on the back end. So I lay it in the palm of my hand and hold it with my thumb. You might call this like a butter knife grip because it's like you're buttering bread. Or I call it like the Harry Potter wand, spell casting grip. Either way, that's the way I like to hold the pencil almost 80% of the time when I'm drawing. So when you hold the pencil like this, automatically what starts to happen is when you make a mark, instead of pushing, so when I'm holding my pencil like this, I'm digging that line into the page. I'm kind of pushing forward, plowing ahead. When I hold it back, I'm pulling the pencil. So wherever I go, I'm just kind of dragging it. That's a better word, dragging the pencil along the page. And if you notice, these lines I'm making are very, very light. If I just barely press, you're just kind of lightly gliding across the page if you can. So if I do something like that very lightly, I can erase it back and you'll never see it again. So that's kind of step one, is ease back on the pressure, kind of have a light hold, a firm grip on the pencil, but a light pressure on the page, and you're going to be a lot happier. So that's one thing. The other would be when you go to start, give yourself a little bit of a break. It doesn't have to look exactly like this bottle from the beginning, and I'll show you what I mean. So this is kind of going to be point number 2 of day 1 of drawing. Drawing is just a series of revisions or edits, whatever you want to call it. So when writers learn to write, I don't think that writers learn to write the perfect story, in one go ever. I don't think that would ever happen. Writers learn to become better editors. They can look at their work and know what to change, right? And how to make their writing stronger. Drawing is no different. So we just become better at editing our own drawings. So what I mean by that is, when I started drawing, say, this bottle, I'm going to do a few things that help me right off the bat. So one would be, I want to make this bottle about this tall. So I'm going to give myself a couple points, a bottom and a top to this bottle. So already I'm not starting with an outline, I'm starting with measuring points maybe. And we'll talk about all this stuff much more thoroughly down the road. Now, when I start with the body of the bottle, I'm going to go really, really loose. And I'm just trying to get a feel for how wide this thing would be versus how tall it would be. So if you notice the type of lines that I'm making, they're wobbly, they're loose, they're certainly not perfect. I'm trying to find that hump of the shoulder of the bottle right here. Okay, I'm working my way through. And if you notice, my pencil's kind of going everywhere. I'm going all the way around this form. Now I'm looking for where the cap might be. All right. So this would be like my first draft here. Notice, my first draft is not beautiful. But what I've got is, compared to this, I've got a very light drawing that I'm able to erase, should I want to, back to the white of the page. And I've got a structure that I can now build on. So this, in comparison to the outline or the contour style of drawing, this is what we would commonly refer to as a gesture. You'll hear that word a lot if you get into a figure drawing class. So a gesture is a looser drawing that kind of captures motion and just the bare bones of things. Another term that I use kind of a little bit as a kind of a stand-in for gesture would be a sketch, a quick sketch, right? So looser, more gestural, more sketchy. Those are all kind of a little bit of synonyms for us. So why do I start so light like this and with this really loose structure? Now that I've done that, I'm much more able and willing to start to make changes to this thing. So a big trick for me is I make sure that I draw a line down the center. And again, we're going to talk about all this stuff later. So some of this won't make total sense to you just yet, but just to make sure that I've got my bottle feeling nice and symmetrical. And this isn't bad, nothing's too far off, so that's good. So in theory, the cap to the bottle and the middle of the base of the bottle should all be kind of in a straight line up and down, right? We don't want this bottle to be leaning one way or the other. Now I can start to look at things like the roundedness of the cap. It's kind of like a cylinder shape. Cylinder for the top of the cap. If you notice, I'm getting a little bit cleaner with my lines, but I'm still kind of staying in that gestury mode further back on the pencil. So now I've got a bottle cap. I'm gonna look back to those shoulders that we talked about. Make sure I'm kind of bouncing on both sides of this axis line to make it feel like those shoulders feel accurate and that this doesn't feel a whole lot wider than that. So I've got those shoulders that come down at a certain point. We wrap around to where we get to the label. So there's kind of a smiley face line right here. Notice I'm thinking about the whole design, left, right, all the way across. I'm not just picking one point. I'm kind of working my way down here. This would be that yellow label. Straight up and down. Thinking about how much space is there from one side of the axis to the other. Okay, looking pretty good. That yellow label comes down somewhere around here. Okay, not bad. And then we pop back out to the clear plastic. A little bit of roundedness, and we come right down to our measuring points, that bottom line that we drew for ourselves. And then there's those little bumps. I don't know what to call them exactly, but there's kind of like a roundedness on most bottles like this. All right, so now that took me a little bit longer. One, because we had to explain gesture, but two, because I was trying to get, as accurate as I could, more and more detail in here. But if you notice, I just slowly, from the start, very loose and gestural, a little bit tighter in the second pass. My third pass, I'm probably going to go a little darker and even more specific. So it's not until quite a bit later in the drawing when I can really come back in and get what feels like an actual, accurate, darker, cleaner outline. or what you might call like a contour line, right? And now finally, I'm getting closer to the style of lines that I made over here. But what's awesome about this one is it's going to be much more accurate. Now, all of those tools I'm using to make this feel accurate, we're going to talk about down the road. But if you can think about starting your drawings in a more gestural and sketchy way, I guarantee you it's 100% going to make the drawings more accurate and overall better. And a lot of it has to do with your expectations. So don't expect the drawing to look like the perfect version of that bottle with clean outlines right away. It's a long process drawing. It takes a while, and it takes a while even if you've done it for a really long time. So it takes some patience, but just remember that you don't want to hold yourself to too high of a standard early on. And if you do that, you're going to be a lot happier. So soon we're going to talk a lot more about this idea of gestures, contours, when to use both methods, and sometimes when to use them both at the same time in a drawing. And then we're going to talk about a lot of techniques that help you with your accuracy, your proportions, all that good stuff.